In his days as a player, his skills graced the game. As a manager, his teams adorned it. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Matt Busby. I've been reading your book this week, which is coming out, and in fact going to be serialised next week in the Express.
Yes.
It occurred to me, reading it, that you're the most famous man in soccer in this country, and indeed, I suppose, in the world, one must have been. And yet you've always gone quietly about your business. You shun publicity in a way, don't you?
I think I've had this preamble of going and doing a job and trying to make it as quietly and as sufficiently as possible, rather than be shouting out, because it's very dangerous to shout.
Why is it dangerous to shout out?
Well, sometimes in our particular profession, being a soccer manager, every 24 hours makes you a fool. It's a fact. Every 24 hours can make you a fool, because you can forecast something in the 24 hours, it's upside down.
Yes.
So probably this is one of the reasons why I've always said to myself, made a rule to wait for 24 hours.
Yes. Well, what about somebody who doesn't wait for 24 hours, like Brian Clough, for instance? Now, there you have a complete contrast. Brian, you know, is fiery, speaks off the top of his head immediately and says things. Yeah. You, as a manager, and a long-serving manager in the game, when you watch him on television, what are your feelings about him?
Well, Brian Clough, I think he's been in the news a little this last week.
Yes.
First of all, I think he's done a marvellous job. There's a lot to admire about Brian Clough. And he's done a great job in the period of time he's been as a manager. But I do feel myself, and of course natures are different, he's got a different nature from me, but I do feel many, many a time he causes embarrassment for himself by probably, if you like, I dislike the fact that he criticises managers, or he criticises this and criticises another thing, whereas he'd be far better confining himself to his own club and doing it from there. I'm sure, as we all know, he's going to Brighton this week, and I'm sure this chap has got something to offer the game.
Yes.
A great deal to offer the game.
Yes.
But, as I say, it all depends on whether it's his nature, and I suppose he can talk that way about me.
Yes.
Not being able to talk or shout out.
You were more than a manager there. Well, you were the boss, weren't you, really?
Well,
come on,
quite a lot of people said that, yeah. I always remember old Mr. Hardman, who was the chairman, Michael, and we're at a directors' meeting one night, and there was something cropped up, and he turned around and he says to his directors, he says, our manager has asked for our advice, and he'll please his bloody self.
And that's
so I don't know.
Well, they can't argue, of course, with the kind of success you gave United. The other thing, too, about your football teams, they were always entertaining football teams. You had a very simple philosophy about football, Matt, didn't you? You like to see great players, great skills, goals being scored. There's not a lot of it around nowadays, is there?
I regret to say no. I'm afraid we're in a phase at the present time where actually skill is at a discount. And people who have the necessary skill, talented, genius if you like, they are actually not allowed to play with this system we're playing. And the charm to me has gone out of the game, Michael. You know, there was happiness in the game. It seems as though the charm has gone out of the game, because I very seldom see today a laugh on the field with players and managers and directors unless a player scores a goal. You know, there's a lack of warmth or something.
Yes.
Now, this probably is brought in by the fact that we have gone from the type of football we were accustomed to this defensive side of it. And it makes it grim, and of course it probably transfers through to players and everyone else.
Yes. But what about the business, though? You were talking about great players not being allowed to play. I mean, one thing that's happened in the game, of course, in recent years, has been you've had the clogger in the game, the clogger who's kicked the great player and has got away with it. It's a problem that's still with us, Matt. I mean, how do we get rid of that problem? How would you get rid of it?
Well, obviously, I've never liked the cloggers type of player. They talk about ball winners and ball... I talk about ball players, not ball winners. But the only way you can possibly get rid of these people is the fact that there have to be strong action taken. The game has become such that players are all defensive-minded, and with this, obviously, if there's an outstanding player on the other side, the manager of the club playing them says, now, look, you've got to stop this fella. And sometimes he goes in and stops them the wrong way. And the only way you'll do that is there'll have to be... I feel, Michael, that they should be punished on the field of play.
Immediately?
Immediately.
Yeah.
I say that we talk about the sin bin in the ice hockey. And really, whether we take a tip from them or not, the only way you'll ever make clubs suffer is on the field of play. And
yes.
if they were doing something that's wrong and they were sent off for 20 minutes and that type of thing, they would suddenly realise that they cannot carry on with 9 or 10 players.
Yes.
And it would be stopped then. I think it's the only solution.
Yes. What about great players? Because you had through your hands more than most managers, I suppose. Let's pick one classic example who's a casualty of this game, Georgie Best.
Yeah.
He must have caused you some problems, lads.
It's caused me some problems, but it's caused me some great, some great fun and some great excitement. Talking about George, Michael, I always remember, first of all, he came as a boy, an elfin. And the first time I saw him, he was playing around with the young kids playing, and I thought, oh, the good player strikes you. You don't have to look for him. He strikes you. So he was homesick and went home, and then, of course, I wrote to his father, having this in my mind, I wrote to his father if he changes his mind to come back. But anyway, leaving that, I always remember him, I was forever telling him to get married. Why don't you get a good girl and get married and settle down and everything? So anyway, this particular time, we're going abroad and he's come back, and eventually he's met a girl, and I picked up the paper one morning and I see George Best to get married next week. So I went down. I couldn't get down to the ground quick enough. And when I got down there, I called him and I says, what's this all about? He says, what, boss? This in the paper this morning. You're going to get married next week. You don't know the girl 3 weeks. 3 weeks you've known the girl. He says, what's wrong with you? He says, you're always telling me you get married. He's got tremendous ability. He's a genius. He's a great.
Is it the best you've ever seen, do you think, Matt?
He was gifted with the most natural ability of any player I have ever seen.